We've seen periods in American history where anti-incumbent sentiment flares up and a whole lot of challenges happen and a whole lot of incumbents get swept out. But over the course of time, in essence, we have such a high rate of incumbency. I think we're at probably the peak of discontent in this country with incumbents. People are, a 9% approval is like a 91% disapproval. And people like myself are being flushed out of the woodwork where we used to sit around and grumble, and we realize the situation just keeps getting worse. If I think something better be done, I got to go throw my hat in the ring. This country needs to be spared the direction that it's been led into. And if no one else is willing to do it, okay, I raise my hand, and I'm not alone. And it's further evidence of the discontent and unrest that is happening amongst the people of the United States. They're just seeing their rights denigrated, and they were hoping that this government would protect them. But that hope is down to about 9% right now. And I think that's why you're seeing such a burgeoning forth of challenges, even within parties such as the Democratic Party. Well, as you may know from my past, I've been quite active on the issue of impeachment of the current administration, taking heed from the language of the framers of our Constitution that we would know when it was time to institute such proceedings, because we would see an imbalance in the delegate balance between the three separate but equal branches of our federal government. And that has become more than evident, particularly here in the last 2 years of the Bush administration. If we do not commence impeachment proceedings in this administration, if we do not codify behaviors that most of us recognize as being criminal in nature, then in essence we make them legal, and those powers will move on from this presidency to the next. So without regard to whether it's McCain or Obama, we need to have a very strong Congress, because it's in Congress that needs to stand up and equalize the power of an overarching executive. Congress, by the power of the Speaker of the House, cut 6 words, all the same word, out of our U.S. Constitution. 6 times our framers put the word impeachment into the process because they were so concerned in setting up this delicate balance, but giving all this power over to one individual. And understand where they were coming from was hundreds, if not thousands of years of monarchies where all power in the prior countries was controlled by one person. Here they wanted to establish a democracy, and in their concern about putting this awesome power in but one person, the president, that knowing human nature, there may be attempts by presidents in the future to assert more and more power to themselves and strip down and unbalance the checks and balances between the 3 separate but equal divisions. And we would know when we saw that happen. They gave 3 causes for impeachment. One is bribery, the other is treason. Those, a rose is a rose, a rose, you know it when you smell it. But they left this open concept of high crimes and misdemeanors because they understood it that back in the late 1700s, who knows what some individual might do in the future? They said, you'll know by the results of what they do. And when you see that imbalance occur, when you see the Speaker of the House take impeachment off the table, whatever the process might be that upsets the ability of the houses of Congress to stand up to and balance the president, impose impeachment. And people seem to think impeachment is just throwing the bum out. But that's the end of a long process that commences in the House of Representatives, which has no authority to remove anyone from office other than sanctioning one another within the houses. We could bring such charges for these high crimes and misdemeanors. It would go from an open floor of the House of Representatives by a majority vote to the House Committee on the Judiciary to commence an investigation, and a very high-level investigation in which executive privilege is not allowed under the impeachment investigations. And that would stop an overreaching executive from saying, I don't have to come in and talk to you, like you've seen him pass down to Bolton and Myers and Karl Rove. And so with impeachment investigations, it's come on in here and talk to us, and never mind, you don't have to talk to us because you're some high-ranking government official. You're being charged with a crime. We're here to investigate it. If you can bring us evidence that you're not guilty of this crime, please bring it in. This is the time to reason it out. On the other hand, if we find credible evidence, we're going to frame an article of impeachment, and we're going to send that back onto the open floor of the House. And a simple majority vote there constitutes an impeachment. It happened with President Clinton. And so that impeachment is writing down a behavior that's just occurred by the executive or by the high-ranking official, and then putting the imprimatur of a majority of the House of Representatives believing that charge stands. That is what we need to accomplish to be able to say these behaviors, such as the 35 charges that Dennis Kucinich read in on the 9th of June here in 2008. And not only did he read each charge, but he offered all of the credible evidence as a matter of public record that exists to substantiate these charges. So we don't need lengthy investigations before an article of impeachment could come back from the House committee. It could happen very, very quickly. All we need is for the chairman of the House to get out from under the thumb of Ms. Pelosi, who's under the thumb of Steny Hoyer, and put impeachment on the table as our Constitution says it always is, conduct an investigation, find the credible evidence, send it back up to the open house. Then we would have this document for all future presidents. If you behave in this fashion, it's a crime and you're going to be put out. It doesn't have to go all the way forward after finding the impeachment to a Senate trial. It doesn't matter whether there are not are not enough votes in the Senate to remove from office. We need to write law today to outlaw the behaviors, the criminal behaviors that happen in this administration. If we fail to do that, then all of those behaviors are deemed to be just fine for any president to do. Well, I think it boils down to party politics versus obeying one's duty to one's constituents under one's oath of office. In the case of Congressman Olver, he has told us how much he favors Nancy Pelosi, who is his political leader within his party. So he is playing party politics, whereas the people of his district in due process last year resolved in 20% smattering of towns throughout his district by over a 2/3 majority. And he got that when the representatives of those 19 towns brought it before him. He got it that the overwhelming majority of his constituents were resolved, duly resolved in annual town meetings for the impeachment of Vice President Cheney and President Bush. However, he vehemently refused to sign on to it. The reasons that he gave us, as I was saying before, do not hold water, neither constitutionally nor with good common sense. In the history of the United States, there have been 9 presidential impeachments. In each and every prior instance of a presidential impeachment being commenced, the impeaching party has prevailed in the following presidential election. Now, you will hear Democrats say, we don't want to do impeachment because it'll harm our chances in 2008 at the polls. There is no basis, in fact, no basis in history, no basis in American law that gives them the right to say that backs up that argument. So I find that to be a useless argument. The argument that there aren't enough votes in the United States Senate to carry forward a removal from office, as I explained before, that isn't the goal of impeachment. It can be a result of an impeachment. But the goal of impeachment is, again, to identify behaviors that have been carried on by this administration that we don't want to see done, because it makes our government fall out of balance and we begin to see our democratic rights and our privileges under the Constitution eroded. We create our government to preserve and defend that Constitution, to protect our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.